I want to talk about the lyric essay. The essay you read for today, The Glass Essay by Anne Carson, is one of the most famous and powerful lyric essays in the language. I'll talk more about that essay, more specifically about that essay later. The lyric essay, I would say, of all the subgenres of the essay that we're exploring, the lyric essay most invites experimentation, innovation, leaps of the imagination. And I really hope that the second time around for you for your second workshop, some of you explore the endless possibilities of the lyric essay. The lyric essay is difficult to define. Unlike the memoir, the family profile, the travel essay, the essay of place, which have fairly clear conventions and fairly clear parameters, the lyric essay can really be almost anything. Just think of the very phrase itself. Essay. We think, of course, of what we've been doing. We've been writing fairly linear prose that aspires toward a unity of effect. Lyric. We probably think of poetry. And of course, poetry proceeds less through linearity and more through image, more through sound. More contemporary poetry, more through fragmentation. So the lyric essay is, from the get go, a hybrid form. It is a form that combines conventions of the traditional essay with the conventions of poetry. So, for this reason, you will often find in the lyric essay not only mixtures of prose and poetry, but oftentimes mixtures of all sorts of forms of writing. So, in a lyric essay like Dinty Moore's The Son of Mr. Green Jeans, you might find a dictionary show up or an encyclopedia show up where each alphabetical entry presents a certain image or narrative that in the end suggests something about a theme or speaker. Lists can sometimes show up. Recipes can sometimes show up. Instruction manuals can sometimes show up. Really, almost any form of writing you can imagine can go into the lyric essay. And oftentimes, these other forms of writing are used satirically. You can think of the essay by Eula Biss called The Pain Scale, where in a meditation on how to measure pain, she uses actual diagrams from medical textbooks. That would be a perfect example of how the lyric essay, again, is hybrid not only in terms of poetry and prose, but hybrid insofar as it is open to all different kinds of discourse, some conventionally literary, some non literary. But I think the lyric essay does share across the board some characteristics, and I'm going to articulate some of those right now. In addition to hybridity, the lyric essay tends to devalue linearity and therefore does not proceed via logic, but often proceeds via image or sound. So think of the glass essay. Glass is the organizing idea of the essay, not so much the narrative of the speaker's life, even though there is a narrative there of a heartbreak, a broken romance, a visit to the mother, and an effort to try to come to terms with the pain of her loss. That's there, but it seems that Anne Carson is more driven by glass and the various iterations of glass. So we have glass imagery, of course, with windows, with bell jars. We also have ice imagery, the ice on the moors. We also have imagery of water. So throughout the piece, glass shows up in all of its different forms, not all of its different forms, but many different forms. And each time glass takes on a different form or is repeated in a different context, it takes on additional meaning. So the image glass accrues meaning throughout the piece. It's as if Carson is thinking less in a linear way, a logical way, and more in a analogical way, similarity of image. The essay also proceeds through sound, as poems proceed through sound. You can talk to any poet, and a poet will often say that I choose my next word not so much based on what the word means, but more based on how the word sounds. That the musicality comes before the semantic level. Well, in the Glass essay, there are all kinds of interesting sound relationships. Uh, the lover's last name is Law, or his name is Law, I should say, which is connected to Haw, which shows up in the essay, which is connected to Haworth, which is where the Brontes lived, which is connected to Ma. So you can start paying attention to these various internal rhymes throughout the essay. And again, that Carson seems more interested in making her essay signify through these internal rhymes than in conventional ways of conveying meaning through expository writing or logical writing. Excuse me. So, the hybrid essay, the lyric essay, also seems to value fragmentation over unity. As we go through the ice essay, we see an I, but who is this I? Uh, Anne Carson, yes, based on Anne Carson, but then the I of Anne Carson is constantly blending and blurring with the I of Emily Bronte to the point where it's difficult to tell sometimes whose point of view we are witnessing, whose words we are listening to. So there's a sense that the self is not coherent, but the self is fragmented, that the I of the essay is not self contained. The I of the essay is distributed over different points of view, in particular that of Emily Bronte. Moreover, in the essay, Anne Carson imagines her I from many different points of view. She calls these points of view nudes, where she imagines her body in these dreamlike situations, 12 of them in all, each of which expresses a different mood, a different part of herself. So there again, the self is not unified, the self is not self-contained, the self is fragmented in different points of view, that prismed, if you were, and that would be another way to think about how glass shows up in the essay as a prism. Another part of lyric essays, frequently, not always, and of course not all lyric essays feature the conventions I'm currently describing, the features I should say, but these features show up in a lot of lyric essays. Another feature of the lyric essay is often a meta level of meaning, where the essay is self-conscious. It thinks about what it is doing. It is what it is about, where oftentimes the writer will break the fourth wall, as it were, and address the reader as if to say, look, what I'm doing here, I'm not trying to pass it off as reality. This is just a construct. This is just one way that I put this information together. I could have put it together another way. In other words, the writer tries to suggest that there's nothing inevitable about this essay, but that it is a construct among many possible constructs. So the glass essay is meta in this way. The glass essay is the title, which suggests, of course, that the essay itself is glass. So all the qualities of glass that you see in the content of the essay itself as an overall form features. The transparency, the opacity, the reflexiveness, the aloofness, the coldness, the sense of being entrapped, the sense of being liberated. All of those are qualities of the essay that make the essay itself resemble glass. It is what it is about. So those are a few thoughts on the lyric essay. In our touchstone, as I said, two examples would be Eula Biss's The Pain Scale and Dinty Moore's The Son of Mr. Green Jeans. Another exquisite example would be Leah Purpura's The Autopsy Report.